Jensen Huang is seemingly doing everything right. I mean, short of gifting President Trump a golden GPU, he is, courting the president in terms of echoing some of the sentiment that the administration has regarding manufacturing in America, et cetera, and then also making all these partnerships, which seems to be the way to put market cap onto your company these days. Ink a partnership, and the rest will follow.
Well, he even referred to it as a virtuous cycle. And so at what is called, today was called unofficially the Super Bowl of AI. All the companies, whether it's Palantir, CrowdStrike, you name it, these are the companies that certainly will be part of it. And what we've already learned about Nvidia over the last, call it 2 months, is that they really are an AI infrastructure company, and the way they are investing and the way these deals have seemed somewhat circular in nature. Just getting to the numbers that we got, that the analyst community now is scrambling over and what it means for valuations, and a 4% move in Nvidia is probably the bigger move we've seen in Nvidia in a long time. If you read at least some of the analyst reports that I'm getting, what's been implied by this $500 billion or half a trillion number is a lot of the street was somewhere between Blackwell and Hopper, somewhere around 350 to 400 at the higher end. So it means what we heard today is probably some increase of anywhere from 25 to 50% on what the street was expecting in terms of shipments between now and the end of 26. That's extraordinary. And NVIDIA's always been this story where we've all known it was extraordinary. And it was just how much more extraordinary. I think today was more extraordinary.
100%, Tim's right. And you mentioned he has a fiduciary responsibility to his shareholders,
yes,
and he's doing it extraordinarily well. So good for him. Making deals, currying favor, all those things. Problem I've had incorrectly has been, price to sales. Now, you said $5 trillion. Let's round up. I mean, this is a company now that's approaching 19 times revenue, which is a big number at this mature of a company, I think. But people will say it's a new paradigm that will grow into that revenue. We shall see. November 19th, with this market move, that's when we report. It's going to be a fascinating day.
Yeah, it's also interesting that clout that Jensen now is having. When the president threatened to send troops to San Francisco, Jensen was one of the CEOs that got him on the horn, and he stepped back from that. And so, we talk about this transactional nature that this administration has with business, and I think that's a great example of it. The one thing I'd say about Nvidia, and Mel, you just said that, one way to add market cap to your company is do a deal with them. Well, Uber closed down in the day. Palantir actually was unchanged on the day. And at some point, it's not going to be that exciting to do a deal with them that's on the come in the future. And I think when there's been hundreds of companies that Nvidia has invested in over the last few years. And a lot of those investments have to do with these companies. That was the Uber deal of buying these chips. So when you get this $500 billion number, and this company is expected to do, let's say, $300 billion in sales next year, you have to start scratching your head a little bit whether we're getting a little too far over our skis. And then the other thing about this circular nature of all this investment, and then they buy the chips back, this is becoming very financialized. It used to be you sell a product, someone buys the product, they put it into work, they get a profit from it. If it goes really well, then they buy your next product, right? So you think about it now, a lot of the financings and all this stuff that's going on in and away from Nvidia too, there is a lot tied into this one name right now that used to not be it. It was a single play on the build out of this theme, and then we had the hyperscalers. But now it's moving all over the place, and it's infected the markets, and there is risk to that. There is risk that people are saying $5 trillion is going to be $6 trillion really soon. And I just can't find anybody who thinks that there's some danger to this for the broad market, not just this name in particular.
Yeah, I have a hard time arguing with that point. You mentioned two terms.
As much as I'd like to.
Circular and financial engineering. And I do want to acknowledge that there is a fair amount of that going on. With that said, I think I view it through the opposite lens. The knock on Nvidia coming in was that it was a hardware company, that it would be subject to cyclical nature and pullbacks. And what they've done, and it was somewhat self-serving likely, but what they essentially said was, listen, we want to push into China because we want the world building on our technology, American technology and Nvidia's technology. And all they've done is essentially replicate that within the United States. They are now on the public and private side with this Palantir deal. They have backed Circle and the NeoCloud companies. There is no way to continue to build up without being on the CUDA stack, whether it be the individual chip. They have found a way to spread their tentacles, if you will, into all of the different facets of AI. And that is why I think that maybe the $5 or $6 trillion number might actually be too low. There seems to be no way to push forward into AI. And we were worried about what their role would be within agentic and inference AI. And now they've kind of leapfrogged themselves into a leadership position in that next wave. And so it is circular. And I want to acknowledge the risk that you're putting out there. But it essentially guarantees that they continue to be at this very center of this AI flywheel.